What if I told you you could make 20, 30, even 40% more income than your competitors at your short-term rental business? Before we dive into this training, I am Kate Stormer and I'm going to tell you how you can do this. But first, here's a property in Joshua Tree, very saturated market, making 37% more than average in that market. Here's this one in Southeast Ohio, bringing in 39% more than its comps in an area full of cute little log cabins. Maybe you're thinking, not my property. My property isn't unique enough. It's not the perfect location. It lacks that extra something. I just need a couple extra bookings. Well, it doesn't matter. This will help you. This non-ocean front, non-ocean view, not ocean access property is getting 32% more than its comps. You can do this too. So, welcome to the Listing Optimization webinar, where we leverage hospitality science research to get more short-term rental bookings and revenue. I'm Kate Stormer. I am an ex-corporate executive from healthcare. Got my MBA along my journey, and now I've used all of that corporate and education that I have poured into my short-term rental business, the CEO Host, where for my own purposes, as well as for clients, I have performed literally hundreds of investment analyses and analyzed thousands of properties to the point where I now understand that there is a income potential range that exists for short-term rentals, and that there are specific things you can do to make sure your property hits the top of its potential. So, having learned these secrets, I applied them and tested them to my own portfolio for properties that I manage and worked with clients, and we have seen consistent results. So, I'm going to share these secrets with you today, okay? Before we dive into the tactical sides, let's talk a little bit about what is an optimized property. So here's that property from Joshua Tree, and it is getting 483 ADR, that's nightly rate, at 67% occupancy. It is doing about 36% better than its peers. This property, by the way, this is actually its listing at the time that I put this together. It's listing Hero Photo in Destin, which is an ocean market. So it is clearly not doing well. Just based on that, you could have known that. It's below both market and its comps. This one, though, is a little bit tricky because its ADR is better than both market and comps, but its occupancy is actually lower. It's about 11% lower in total revenue than its comps. So I definitely would say this is not an optimized property. So as we look at this final example, that's hitting it out of the ballpark in Hocking Hills, Ohio, that I found while I was doing an investment analysis in that market. An optimized property is one that is performing minimally to benchmark its comps, but the work we do today will actually elevate results most of the time. A well-done niche will result in 20 to 40% higher revenue than your comps. So in order to do this well, we have to first understand a little bit of theory, and that's our potential guest's journey to the Book Now button. And while they are taking this journey, they're simultaneously going through both a conscious evaluation while at the same time having a less conscious or even subconscious experience, all of which is either propelling them forward toward our Book Now button or sending them toward our competition. And I want to be clear, sometimes lookers should not be bookers at our property. They should move on. We are not right for everybody. The job of listing optimization is to draw in our ideal guest. So we want to optimize our listing for that purpose. So there have been many studies looking at consumer decision making. The entire field of marketing revolves around that fact, right? But relevant to us in short-term rentals, there are a few studies, one in 2022 that built on some earlier research that's super helpful. And what that study found that there's a hierarchy, a sequence in the journey to the Book Now button. There are three main decision points or tiers along the journey. And if we don't meet the consumer's conscious or subconscious need at point one, they will never move on. We won't even get a chance to be further considered. And so those decision points first are fit, safety, and trust, and then the amenities and value, and lastly, what I call the frosting, which is basically all the other factors important to the consumer, along with building, hopefully, a sense of, hell yes, this is the place, but sometimes it's just a will make do. So we're going to dig into these in some detail, but I want to clarify a couple other things really quickly. The first is on the journey to the book now button. When we actually get to the book now button, we are buying an intangible thing, something that at the point of purchase isn't able to be held, seen, or experienced in a tangible way. We can't open the door to the property, right? So in marketing, this means our product isn't just the property itself, it is also the holistic experience they will have in the booking process before they ever show up in those communications. All of that is part of what they're buying. Okay. So there's this idiom in marketing that the steakhouses don't sell steak, they sell the sizzle. Well, our listings are the sizzle, right? So, what a consumer is actually buying at the point of book now and evaluating throughout their journey is a significant number of attributes that we offer. And yes, it includes things like our policies, the fees that we include, the process that they go through. All of that is part of that. So, the marketing textbooks actually call this your core offer. So, research, by the way, has shown that when it comes to vacations, 73% of our enjoyment of that vacation is actually in anticipation of it. So, when our guest feels our place, our offer is exactly what they were looking for. They are predisposed to give us a 5-star before they ever show up. And they spend a lot of time enjoying it before they ever open the door. So, if we deliver on our promise, throughout their experience, that we're consistent from listing to booking to pre-arrival to what happens when they open the door, we will have a satisfied guest, a 5-star review, and in some cases, a repeat guest and word of mouth advertising. By the way, for our ideal guest, we would really have to screw up to get less than 5 stars. Okay. So, to summarize that journey to the book now button, the guest is absolutely buying more than a place to sleep. This is an intangible, which means every part of the process is part of the offer. There is a sequential decision-making process we can leverage in how we present our offer to draw in our ideal guest. And when we are congruent throughout that guest experience, that will get us 5-star reviews and repeat guests. So, in understanding our buyer's journey, let's dig into ensuring our offer aligns with the market, and we'll begin this work to identify precisely who is ideal for our property and how to facilitate their journey to our Book Now button. And the work really starts with the idea of our superpower, our niche in marketing terms. So, what do I mean? Let's get clear on this. So, in traditional marketing, you'd start with the audience you serve, the market, the submarket, and the niche. And in fact, we do the same thing in short-term rentals, but let's take a look at that here. So, a couple of examples. You've got a larger property, you're probably a group. I'm in Michigan. Upper Michigan lakefront might be my market, and my budget tier would be maybe a mid-lower budget tier. My submarket is we have a boat dock, and we really cater in our niche to pets and older kids. So that's an example. Here's a second example: multi-generational family groups in the luxury Destin market. Single family home on the beach, they're more rare in this market, and catering to family groups looking for a luxurious experience. And a final example, just to bring this home, our audience is adventure seekers in the Broken Bow upscale market. Direct ATV trail access is our competition and what we offer, and our niche is actually a log cabin with an in-home cinema. Okay, that's great, but let's look at this. I love this property as an example of this. I stumbled across it when I was doing an investment analysis for a client, and I like it because it is a second-tier property. I call these backup boyfriend properties because they're not really the experience people come in this market for. This is Galveston Island. They're coming for the ocean. This is not oceanfront, ocean view, or even ocean access, where the ocean is really the key price driver, right? But let's look at this. So it's a 3-2, so it's vacationing groups in the Galveston sort of, more budget value market. Price point, they cater to families who are, because of their price point, looking at non-ocean accent properties, and their specific niche. When you look at this, their lead photo, their headline is value-seeking families with small kids. And note, I mentioned policies are part of your offer. What do you see here? The late checkout policy. Okay. And how are they doing? They are doing really well for a non-beach access property. In fact, they are doing so well that their total revenue for the year competes with Ocean View Beach Access Properties averages. Okay. It is doing really well. So here's another example in action. This is a very spacious 2-2 that sleeps up to 6 in the Knoxville luxury market. Their submarket is they are in the thick of things downtown, and their niche is urban palacios. It is very sumptuous luxury offering. And how are they doing? They are killing it, both in terms of occupancy and ADR. So they've niched well, and their numbers support that. So having laid this foundation of audience, market, submarket, and niche, I'm going to go back to the idea that our offer is more than just the property itself. And note in every example of my framework, I did note budget tier as a market attribute. And I want to just define this for a second, because price is not market or niche. Budget tier is. So people will come into a market with an idea of what they have available to spend and what they think they're going to be able to get for what they can spend. And that will refine as they begin to look in the market about what they can get in that market. But essentially what that means is there's sort of a not a price point per se as much as a budget tier, a flex that they will operate within. And they will come into a market, and then they will develop some ideas about what they can get for that budget tier. So there's some inherent expectations tied to that. Price itself is just a marketing tool that flexes within your tier. So don't mistake price as part of your offer. Pricing is a marketing activity that just fluctuates within your budget tier. So when you think about your own property superpower, there are obviously many ways to slice and dice target audience, market, submarket, and niche. And this is actually something a lot of my clients really struggle with. And so we work on that. So I have a framework that I use. And when we start with target audience, this is probably the easiest one because it's just the demographic that you serve. And that is going to be informed by your property and the location of your property. But you could really lean into this by mining your and your competitors' reviews to get insights about your target audience. You can use travel forums, social media. I've personally learned some great prompts for AI to help me do this. And I actually have that in my listing optimizer course if you're looking to lean into that. But when it comes to market, submarket, and niche, this is where a lot of my clients really struggle that we go through this. So I have a framework what I use, and starting with market, because we know in lodging choice, budget, tier, and location are the key drivers. Those are the number one and number two drivers for lodging choice. So we start with that as our market definition in my framework. And then our submarket, I go into housing types, so condos, single family homes, that kind of thing. Occupancy, so how many people do you sleep? I don't do bedroom count, by the way, as much as occupancy, because that can change. In some markets, pet policy is submarket. In other markets, it's actually niche. So there is some flex on this. And then sublocation. And location is maybe proximity, it may be actual location, it may be even in some markets, views would be, sort of a component of location. So it's going to vary a little bit on your market. But then when we get to niche is your unique selling proposition. What makes you unique? And that's where the money is. Okay. So a niche could be the amenities and services you offer. It could be a cultural lifestyle element, but whatever that is, it is your specific unique selling proposition. And by the way, you may have more than one niche, and that's okay. Seasonal changes, for example, could be a big driver for defining more than one niche. And we're going to talk about what all that means. But the use case for niche for us in short-term rentals is to improve our offer and our message. Okay. This is all marketing. Okay. So we want to speak directly to a segment of our target audience and engage with them in a way as to elicit that less conscious hell yes emotion, because we really want that ideal guest, right? Now, here's the thing. Without niching well, our offer is going to do fine, right? Assuming our offer resonates and there's demand in our market. But what niching does is it's like if you're at a party and you're hearing a conversation and they're like speaking your language, you immediately feel drawn to that person, right? That's what niching does. It cuts through everything else and gives you that relationship. So it's kind of like, if you Target is advertising, bring more joy to your holidays. right? Lots of people go to Target because Target has what they need. Lots of people will book your property because you have what they're looking for. Your entire target audience, you will be considered in the pool of candidates for what they're looking for. What niching does is you're going to target a component of your overall audience in such a way as to make them feel seen, heard, and like to get them to respond to you. It's like I'm speaking directly to you, right? And what that does is it propels them immediately to our book now button because now we're rare. No other property is doing this. And it's just like for some people they're going to go to Target. For other people they're going to go to Target because an advertisement triggered a response in them and caused them to say, "Oh, you know what? I meant to go." So that's what we're going to do. But in niching, it has to be broad enough to have sufficient interest in your target audience. It does need to be rare in your market, right? So if everybody's got hot tubs, that's not rare. That's not your niche. And it's got to be appropriate for your property, right? Like if you've got a 6-bedroom house, advertising it as a romantic getaway is probably not going to work. All right. So here's an example of a very niched house. Okay, it's a 1 bed, 1 bath in Gatlinburg, mid to upscale budget tier. It's an updated cabin for two. And it is called Kink Cabin. That is its name. And so they are obviously going more after the sex sells versus the romantic getaway. I saw this one circling on social media with, as you can imagine, a fair level of titillating interest. And I was curious if this niche is working for them. So I did do a quick analysis. Now, again, I'm just using the data clearinghouses. They may get direct bookings. They may have other places, but according to the data sources I have available to me, it's not actually working for them. It's getting about 15% less than comps. Now, in this market, clearly the romantic getaway, the comps for that submarket are doing really well, way better than market overall. But this Kink Cabin is not doing quite as well as its comp. So it could have just done the romantic getaway and it probably would have done even better. So when you're narrowing down your niche, identifying your property's superpower, let's take this cabin. You've seen it a lot throughout my presentation, and we could turn this into a hell yes in any number of ways. So most people, a 1-bedroom cabin, it's a romantic getaway. That's a problem. But maybe you focus on have a quiet celebration with your loved one. Maybe it's a variety on the romantic getaway theme, or maybe it's a digital detox as a different lens to consider. These potential niches are suitable for the property and the market. And the goal of selecting one or two of them is to become an expert for that segment of the overall market. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Well, how does this play out? So if we go for a romantic nature getaway, that frames our messaging: escape the everyday and rediscover your love, secluded, intimate, unforgettable. The photos that we choose to highlight, all of it speaks to this romantic nature getaway. So we really want to connect with that less conscious hell yes response, right? So what does a niche do for us? It really tells us what to emphasize in our listing. What to say in our headline, what our first couple sentences should be. So if you look at this is one of my markets, the top one. Now I looked at this in fall in Michigan. And so the top one, they're behind the ball because nobody's looking for a pool house to book in November or December in Michigan. The second one more so would be they've obviously, hit at their niche. I'm patting myself in the back since that's my property. um, so, but you could take that 1-bedroom cabin and go a totally different direction. So everybody's doing romantic getaway. What if this is your creative muse? What if you appeal to the person who wants to get working on their novel? What if you want to hit up the person who just wants to get away for the weekend and be quiet and think, or have a strategic weekend away for a business owner, or whatever? So let that drive. And so see how my photo emphasis changes. See how my messaging changes. Unleash your creative genius, where nature meets comfort. All of these things, effectively what we're doing is to shift what we emphasize in our listing. But the thing I want to note here is, you may use multiple niches, but the goal is not to confuse your audience. So like if you're on Vrbo, you could look more toward families. And if you're on Airbnb, you could do the romantic getaway. And most people, you're not going to get a lot of crossover there. So that's fine. You could have two niches there. But if you're out on social media promoting and messaging to a creative muse and referencing them back to a romantic getaway listing, you've now confused them and they're going to bounce. Okay. So when it comes to niche, we want to make sure it's broad enough to have an audience, specific enough to be unique. It needs to work for your audience, right? We need to be consistent in the amenities we're offering, how we message it, the photos we highlight. It all needs to speak to our niche, and we don't want to mix niches. Remember that example. Don't go off after, families with small kids and then point to, a poker table with beer signs on it. And then evaluate and change as needed. Okay. So why we do this, a well-executed niche can substantially increase your revenue. If you're worried about excluding others in your target audience, don't. People are going to show up for your place, even if it's not perfect. Okay. Niching just sort of increases that 20% of people who are going to see it as the perfect thing for them. There are many ways to slice and dice your audience, your market, your submarket, and your niche. I have a framework that I walk people through to make that easier, but however you come to it, evaluate your results and adjust as needed. And remember, location and budget tier are the two key drivers in the journey to the book now button. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the kryptonite in your listing. Where are the weaknesses? How do we avoid them? So if we remember that in our listing and the journey to the book now button, there are these decision points. So as we talk about barriers to the booking journey and how to avoid them, let's do it through this framework. So let's start with fit. So at a conference a few years ago, I learned that women make 80% of the booking decisions in travel, business and leisure both. And the number one driver is actually how well the accommodations work for the group she represents. The thing is fit is different for each person, right? So we already know location and budget tier are clear drivers. Occupancy will be to an extent, but for the rest, it's really going to be specific to the person. So fit may be physical amenities like a hot tub or a king bed. We already know its location, but location may be proximity. It may be a specific street, or maybe less specific. Three within a 2-hour driving radius. Fit could also be policies. Somebody who's been bit by a cancellation policy may focus on that more than somebody else, or a pet policy is often a big one. But whatever they are, in this sense, fit are the prerequisites, the absolute requirements that somebody has in mind for booking. And they're going to be multifaceted, and there's no way we can possibly know them, which is why, by the way, 99% of the people that look at our listing will move on. We aren't a good fit, and that is fine. But what if we were a good fit and they moved on because they couldn't tell? That is the listing kryptonite we want to avoid. So be clear about what we offer. Be crystal clear. Because we know location is a key driver, it might be good to present it in photos and listing copy. Not a lot of people do that. Here's the thing. We know that when people have options, if one of those options tosses up a barrier, like hard to find information, they will move on. Let me say that again. If you make it difficult for somebody to find information they're looking for, they will move on because they have lots of options in most markets. So what are some things you can do to avoid listing kryptonite? Have a floor plan if you have a larger place. Check all the boxes for all your amenities and go back on a schedule, because Vrbo and Airbnb frequently update what amenities you can check and include. Highlight valuable and in-demand amenities and your unique selling proposition, both in photographs and in your listing copy, and be consistent in your photos and your listing copy. Okay. So trust is the other characteristic in that first decision marker to the journey to the book now button. And when our potential guest is consciously evaluating fit, they are taking in a lot of information that can convey trustworthiness. And this is where the art comes from. But we know our review rating is not art. That is a hard fact. And recent research was released. It was Expedia, noted a 4.7 and above is the threshold for what people are willing to accept. So that's a factor of trust. If you're below a 4.7, you are in trouble. By the way, mine is 4.8. That is just an average. But beyond reviews, there are lots of things that are listing kryptonite, like grammar errors, leading with rules, too flowery of language versus being straightforward, word choices, the overall tone of your listing copy, the choices of what photos and whether or not those photos of all the spaces are present. A floor plan will convey more trust than not having one, especially for a larger property. So the tone of the listing, how you present yourself as a host through the listing, through the copy, through the photos you chose to include, the order, a bunch of disorganized photos is going to convey a sense of not so trustworthy, right? All of those things mean something. So here's an example I found. It's a East Coast ski market, and there's literally 6 lines of text in the listing. And when I scrolled through the photos, not a single kitchen or bathroom photo, which immediately, by the way, is going to take most women out of the picture. They are not going to book a place that they can't see what the bathrooms and the kitchens look like. This is a research-backed fact. So fit and trust, moving on. Those are the gatekeepers. The value proposition is next. And this is truly the consumer's judgment based on the amenities you offer, balanced against their judgment of value. Now, basically what this means is that when they go in and search and they get this search result, this looks very much the same. All of these listings for this market look the same, right? So what's going to tip my hand to click on any of these? Well, here's how you create value. When you connect with your prospective guest by addressing their highly specific need, a place to get away and rekindle the creative spark, we've connected with them in a way no other property has. Their perception of rare and therefore value increases within their budget tier. They will pay on the higher end of their budget tier, even if they could get something the similar or the same in terms of numbers of bedrooms, numbers of beds, even in a condo complex. They will pay more because you have connected with them in a way that no other listing has, and that was rare. So in the value proposition, that's going to make you more valuable because you're more rare. If we are competing purely on price, then we are going to fail. When we stay within our budget tier and we convey our unique value well, we are going to win. Okay. So listing kryptonite, photos and copy don't speak to your target audience. You're not clear in your offer about what you offer, both in photos and copy. You have lots of bad reviews, or you're failing to realize your offer includes policies and rules and who you are as a host. So we're going to go through very quickly a few ways that you can elevate based on some of these concepts and a couple of new ones. Let's hop right in. You want to make sure that because each booking platform presents your listing differently, that you look at it as if you are your target audience and make sure that in that platform, the emphasis is on what your audience is looking for right now. So address any seasonal changes. And I will tell you, although it's very helpful to go through to do this work that I've laid out in my course, I bet if you just went in and made changes to your listing in the next half an hour, using some of this info that I've shared just in this training, you will get new bookings you wouldn't have otherwise gotten in the next few days. Okay. An optimized property means you know how it's performing against the market. So I want you tracking your conversion rate, your ADR, and your occupancy, and not just going into the booking platform and seeing what it says happened over the last 30 days. I want you recording it in a spreadsheet and looking at that data over time. Your short-term rental business is not an Airbnb. Airbnb is a marketing and sales platform. The booking platforms are awesome at getting eyes on your offer and helping you ramp up your business. But, I want you to have, at minimum, a direct booking option and a strategy to drive traffic to it. If you're not ready, if that feels overwhelming, what I would tell you if you were my coaching client is simply start by going after current guests by giving them a way to book direct with you via email and an incentive to do so. So some things I do, I have magnetic business cards in all of my properties. I ask for their email during booking and permission to use it. This is key. And I have a Facebook account or an Instagram account. What you see here is actually, it's a fridge magnetized paper for the fridge, and I print it off. It has my checkout rules, it has key safety information, and it has 2 QR codes, one for my digital guest book and one for my direct booking email list. Okay. We talked about trust as a key factor and the Journey to the Book Now button. And reviews are key. You will not always get 5-star reviews, but we can certainly do our best to aim for that by being clear in what we provide and going a tad above that. But if we do get a less than 5-star review, remember that your public response isn't about that guest. They're never going to book with you again. Your public response is about your future guest assessing you as a host. So respond with that in mind, with kindness, clarity, take ownership if you did screw something up, and let future guests know how you fixed it, and effectively give assurances that you're a good host and they're going to have a good experience. And finally, I am the CEO host. Ensure you have a routine to be strategic about your business. Be the boss of your business, okay? Spend some time reanalyzing your market on a schedule. I like quarterly. Assess the data you've been recording and what it means for your short-term rental business. When you are responsive and forward thinking to the data, this will allow you to be successful in your business for years to come. This listing optimization course is based on information we know of right now. I want you to be successful for as long as you choose to be in this business. Markets will shift, trends will change, competitors will change, data sources will change, right? We need a process to ensure we stay ahead of that. And so I strongly encourage you to do that. So we've covered a lot in this webinar. And if you'd like to lean in, or you'd like a little bit more specific guidance about how to do this, the good news is, of course, as you can guess, I have a listing optimization course that will walk you through. So it is 2.5 hours of video. And I will tell you, I'm a mama. I don't have a lot of time, so there is not a single video that is more than 13 minutes. Most of them are around the 5 to 7 minute mark. As I take you bite-sized through each concept in much more detail than I did here. I also give you a lot more information, like some hints and tips around your target audience, depending on their age and the generation they grew up in. So it's a workbook that will walk you directly through everything, accompanied by video. It is all on demand. And essentially what we're going to do is we're going to walk you through who's your audience, what's your market, what's your submarket, what's your niche. How do you apply that into your listing and your messaging? And by the way, all of that is foundational if you're going to go on to do paid advertising. And then what data do you need to be tracked, and what does it mean in terms of any changes that you might need to make? So if you are ready to gain clarity about your audience and your niche, figure out your messaging and apply it so that you speak directly to your target audience and get that hell yes, then I would encourage you to be a boss for your short-term rental and hit that book now to say yes to the Listing Optimizer course. And I hope to see you in the course.